So he's an American lawyer and politician, been serving in the U.S. As a representative for Maryland's 4th Congressional District. And he previously served 2 terms as the 8th Lieutenant Governor of Maryland from 2007 to 2015. He was elected as Lieutenant Governor in 2006, along with Governor Martin O'Malley. Both were reelected in 2010. And then in 2014, he ran unsuccessfully for governor, losing to we don't even want to talk about who. Retired colonel in the United States Army Reserve, having served in the U.S. Army for over 30 years. So thank you for that. Okay, and so now you're running for Maryland Attorney General, and so yeah, give us a few minutes of your thoughts, and then we're going to let you speak, and then Katie O'Malley speak, and then we'll have some questions. Right? Whoever will have questions. All right.
Excellent.
You are muted, so
I'm unmuted.
you're still mute. Yep.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Heidi, let me thank you.
Okay, I don't hear you. Do others hear you?
Thumbs up or down?
Are you unmuted?
Okay, that's my problem. We had this little technical difficulty, and it is now fixed now.
You're good. Okay. Well, and I hear feedback now from you, Heidi, maybe. How are we doing? 1, 2, 3. That's better. That's great. That's good. Well, first of all, Heidi, thank you. I want to thank also Judge Katie O'Malley. We had our first debate, probably our only televised debate yesterday. And I think as Judge O'Malley pointed out at the end of the debate, and I've heard from a lot of people, it was a very civil debate, focused really on the issues in our experience. So I want to certainly thank Judge O'Malley and say that I appreciate the opportunity to participate in that debate. Want to thank the Cecil County Democratic Club for inviting us this evening to talk a little bit about our experience and our background and sort of our vision and what we see the opportunities and the challenges for Maryland and the Office of the Attorney General. Heidi, I should start by saying that about 10 years ago, I was talking to Wes Moore, and I learned that his book, recently the movie rights were sold. And I said, Wes, the only thing I'm asking for is that I get to play you in whoever produced the movie. He said, I'm not sure I can pull that one off, Anthony, but we'll keep you on the list. But I've known him for quite some time. His wife, Dawn, was my campaign director when I first ran for lieutenant governor. But let me tell you about myself and why I'm running. I've been an attorney for nearly 3 decades. I know most people know me as some of the things that you had mentioned, 2-term member of the House of Delegates, a 2-term member or two-term lieutenant governor, and now a 3-term member of Congress. And through those experiences, I've developed a considerable amount of executive experience and experience in advocacy and legislating, bringing groups of people together to solve big problems. But I've been attorney for nearly 3 decades, and in the earlier part, the first half of my legal career, putting my education and my training in service to my clients. I've represented clients in, class action lawsuits, major commercial litigation, employment law matters, intellectual property matters involving financial service firms, big tobacco, securities litigation and enforcement. Probably some of the most rewarding, though, work that I've done as a practicing attorney is the pro bono work that I did, providing legal services to people who couldn't otherwise support those services. And that ranged from criminal defense, children in need of assistance, an important sexual harassment case where I represented an unnamed plaintiff in a large class action lawsuit. And it's that kind of experience that I believe, that broad experience in large cases, many of them involve large settlements, very much similar to the kinds of matters, the big matters that are handled in the Office of the Attorney General, and then coupled with my experience as Lieutenant Governor, where I know the client. The client is the state of Maryland. The Attorney General's office represents the state of Maryland. I know the Department of Health. I know the Department of Transportation, Department of the Environment, and the list goes on because as Lieutenant Governor, I was given responsibilities that included working closely with those agencies who are the clients of the Attorney General. But the other client, and I would argue the more important client, is the Attorney General is the people's lawyer, right? And you're the advocate for the people. And often it's the voiceless, it's the vulnerable, it's the left behind. And that might include courtroom appearances. It certainly includes a lot of time in Annapolis, advocating and fighting for important legislation, working with the governor, working with stakeholder groups, whether it's environmental groups, whether it's labor, whether it's industry, whether it's civil rights advocates, the domestic violence advocacy group, all the groups that I've had the opportunity to work with during my time in Annapolis and on Capitol Hill to solve problems, to get big things done. So I've got a range of experiences, but why I'm running for Attorney General is because I think that Maryland is deserve and demand, and Attorney General will be, an agent of change. We've made a lot of progress in Maryland. This is a great state, primarily because Democrats lead this state. But too many obstacles exist for too many Marylanders. We see that in housing and healthcare. We see it in education. We see it in the environment. We see it in the workplace, policing, and the criminal justice system. Our criminal justice system is broken. Crime is on the rise in Maryland. Recidivism is twice the rate of Virginia. And, really sadly, we incarcerate young Black men at a higher rate than any other state in the nation. We have a higher percentage of Black men behind bars in Maryland than any other state in the nation, including Mississippi. So I'm running for Attorney General to dismantle those barriers, to make government work again, and to fight for the changes that will protect every person and empower every community. So as the Maryland's Chief Legal Officer, I work for the people, we'll investigate problems, we'll advocate for legislative changes, but I'm going to set enforcement priorities that are consistent with the people who elect me. So that's whether we're tackling the rise in the crime rate or public safety, whether we're addressing climate change or environmental justice, dealing with affordable housing or quality healthcare issues, or defending against assaults on women's reproductive freedoms. I'm going to be the people's lawyer, protecting consumers and veterans and seniors, immigrants and refugees. We've got work to do to protect voting rights, workers' rights, and the rights of the LGBTQIA plus community. So I'm going to fight for fairness. Everything I do, every position I take, every decision I make will be done through a lens of fairness, equity, and inclusion, because that is what has been the hallmark of my career, what's characterized my approach to governance. And I humbly ask, I'll do it at the outset, for your support and your vote on July 19th. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present myself.
Thank you. That was wonderful. It was interesting and informative and brief, and I appreciate all of those things. So we'll let Katie Curran O'Malley do the same. Well, actually, Donna Horgan is going to introduce her. So Donna, you have the floor there.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Katie Curran O'Malley was born and raised in Baltimore, where she still lives. Her father, J. Joseph Curran Jr., was the longest serving Attorney General in the state of Maryland. Katie went to college at Towson State University and to law school at the University of Baltimore. While attending law school, she met fellow law student Martin O'Malley, and they got married in 1990, and they have 4 children, Grace, Tara, William, and Jack. Katie started her career as a public servant, attorney, helping victims and defendants navigate Maryland's legal system. On August 16, 2001, then Governor Paris Glendening appointed her to a 10-year term as Associate Judge for the First District Court of Maryland, encompassing the city of Baltimore. She was reappointed to an additional 10-year term in 2011 and retired from the bench in November 2021. As a judge, Katie worked every day to resolve issues ranging from domestic violence to drug addiction to mental health crisis affecting people in Maryland. Katie has spent much of her life and her career serving the people in her community and her state. She was an early and tireless advocate for the marriage equality and equal rights for the LGBTQ plus community, nearly 30 years of service and intimate knowledge of her criminal justice system, perspective as a woman, and deep roots in Maryland make Katie the best person to be the next Maryland Attorney General and the first woman to serve as Maryland top law enforcement officer. Please welcome Katie Kern O'Malley.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Heidi, and everybody from Cecil County's Democratic Club for putting this forum together. It's great to be talking about these issues with Congressman Brown again. We were just on a date last night with WJLA, so you can watch it on Fox 45, WBFF, this Saturday. I hope if you have a chance, you can tune in. So I was just up in Cecil County. I was in Rising Sun in Elkton for Memorial Day, and it was a really wonderful parade. I enjoyed meeting so many people up in your neck of the woods. Everybody was really warm and friendly. So I appreciated being up there. I'm trying my best not to ignore any portion of the state, because we have, in what we call Maryland, is like a mini America. We have our big cities. We have the Washington metro area. We have Baltimore, but we also have great areas that are rural, like the Eastern Shore and Western Maryland, and certainly Cecil County is an area that's just a beautiful place with wonderful people. So thanks for letting me come up and visit with you and participate in the celebrations for Memorial Day. Again, I'm Katie Kern O'Malley, and I want to be your next Attorney General. I've spent the last 30 years working in Maryland's courtrooms. For the first 10, I was an assistant state's attorney in Baltimore County. I actually started there as a law clerk because I worked in the day as a law clerk, and then I went to law school at night so that I could pay for it. And I ended up paying for my law school degree finally by the time I was 50 because of student loans. So I certainly understand and appreciate what kids are going through when it comes to student loan debt. But after serving as a law clerk, I then was hired as an assistant state's attorney, where I worked with some of the brightest lawyers, I believe, in our state when it comes to fighting for victims and protecting communities from violent crime. So I handled certainly misdemeanor cases in the district court, but then soon rose to the felony division, where I tried really heartbreaking cases, murder cases, sex abuse cases, child abuse cases. And before I left that office, after 10 years of prosecuting cases, I was head of the white collar crime unit, where I led investigators and witnesses and victims in solving white collar crimes and taking those cases in front of judges and juries. And while I was there for those 10 years, I must have tried hundreds of cases in front of judges and juries, just not a handful of cases, but hundreds of cases involving domestic violence, like I said, drug trafficking cases, human trafficking cases. And then I was honored to be appointed to the district court bench by Governor Glendening, who I still call my favorite governor, because he gave me the opportunity to be a district court judge, where I have to tell you, it is the busiest courtroom or courthouse in the state of Maryland, where I worked on North Avenue. And we got, so many citizens would come in and day out, whether they were victims of crime or defendants, suffering from issues like mental health issues, drug addiction issues. We had a variety of problem-solving courts that we worked with, and I sat in those problem-solving courts. One of them was drug treatment court, where I worked tirelessly with advocates outside of the courthouse to come up with remedies to get people treatment on demand, because it was, even before the pandemic, the opioid crisis was taking away so many lives here in our state. And it was heartbreaking to see families come in who had lost loved ones to the opioid crisis. So that's an area that I worked on. And then also an area that I felt, as part of being a prosecutor and seeing victims of domestic violence not being treated right, I also found that some of my colleagues in the judiciary really didn't understand the nuances of domestic violence cases. So a part of my job in the judiciary was also to teach the judges across our state on best practices in domestic violence cases. When you're a judge, you're not an advocate for a victim or a defendant. You are, calling the balls and strikes. You're using the rule of law each and every day for people. But there are certain things that judges were doing that was actually putting victims at risk, as not serving them at all. And oftentimes at sentencing, you would hear judges chastising victims for staying in a relationship that they thought what they shouldn't be in, or having their children view the violence that was happening in the house. And so what I was able to do with a national group was teach our judges here in Maryland on best practices and also how to look for lethality issue in cases, whether it's in a bail review or it's sentencing, but also go across the country where I worked with this national group, the National Council of Family Court and Juvenile Justice Judges. And we taught judges around the country because it's an issue that is all over the world. Domestic violence is an issue. Here in Maryland, it is on the rise. Since the pandemic, we've had a 93% increase in domestic violence cases. So those were types of cases that I did in the criminal sphere, but I also got a great deal of work as a civil judge in the District Court of Maryland, where we have original jurisdiction for all the landlord-tenant cases. And you can imagine how many landlord-tenant cases there are in a big city like Baltimore, and just working out the inequities in housing for tenants and advocating, not for tenants' rights or landlords' rights, but making sure people were getting, treated fairly. Landlords were registering, making sure they got their lead paint certificates, all of these issues on a daily basis coming up in the civil courts, as well as working on hundreds of cases and actually presided over thousands of negligence cases and contract disputes. So that's the experience that I bring. And the reason that it's important is not because I did all these things, it's because that's a lot of the work that these attorney generals do. Attorney generals go to court advocating for Marylanders all across the state, in the district courts, in the circuit courts, and in the courts of appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. Some of the issues that they work on are organized crime. Some of them are criminal corruption cases. Some of them involve antitrust violations, security violations. Many of them work in the area of consumer protection, which is one of the largest divisions in the AG's office. And so it's important that you have an attorney that's actually been in courtrooms and tried jury trials and understands the nuances of the laws and how to strategize with the people you'll be leading, so that you can, with experience and judgment and knowledge, use that to direct where your services are best needed in the office. There's not one single attorney general that can ever have subject matter expertise in all the complexities of what the attorney general does. There are very good experts, and that's why it's important that you're able to attract and retain the best and brightest lawyers around the state to represent consumers, to represent us in the organized crime division when it comes to protecting our environment. And these, again, are all areas that I'm really passionate about working on as your next attorney general. Right now, voting rights are under attack, as we've seen across the nation, as well as women's reproductive rights. And I would be the first woman attorney general of our state and will be a fierce advocate for you. So I hope to earn your support, and I look forward to coming out to Cecil County again.
All right, thank you so much.